안녕하십니까. Today we'll be talking about a horticultural heritage, exploring the botanical significance in Korean culture. Four gentlemen known as Haguncha are the four iconic plants that are often used in Korean art. Let's take a look at what each of them represent. Spring is often represented with plum trees because plums represent an indomitable spirit. After a hard winter, plums can actually bloom as early as temperatures in the high 20s, and so it has this sense of overcoming or perseverance. Summer is usually depicted with orchids. Orchids represent virtue, feminine beauty, integrity, and they're usually used because this plant often thrives in warm climates and they typically have some species that only bloom in the summertime. Then in fall, it is represented by chrysanthemums. This flower represents constancy because the blooms persist even in late autumn. They can actually survive even the first frost. Lastly, winter is represented by bamboo. Bamboo represents integrity because it grows straight and tall. It also represents consistency. It is an evergreen plant, which means it's constantly growing even through the tough winters. Plants hold significance in religion as well. In Buddhism, the Bodhi tree and lotus hold special significance. The Bodhi tree is also called the sacred fig or Bodhi tree. In Sanskrit, Bodhi means awakenment or enlightenment. The scientific name for this plant is Ficus religiosa, and that specific epithet religiosa means religious. This tree is also used for medicinal practices, and often the bark is used to carve prayer beads. The sacred lotus represents purity, creation, birth, and enlightenment, and is often used as a symbol in Korean artwork. South Korea even has a Lotus Lantern Festival that usually corresponds with Buddha's birthday, and you can see that lotus symbol iconography here. In Taoism works, you often see many symbols for longevity or immortality. That is why you see the pine tree used often. The pine is an evergreen, that means it's constantly growing. It's also known for being resistant and can have a lifespan of up to 1,000 years. It's also known for being flexible, that can weather even the most difficult storms, and I think that is why it's mentioned in the Korean national anthem. The verse says, "As the pine atop the near mountain stands firm, unchanged through wind and frost, as if wrapped in armor, so shall our resilient spirit." It should also be noted that this is Korea's national tree, the Korean red pine. This is also used to make the iconic Joseon Dynasty throne and is often used in the architecture of Korean historical buildings. Another iconic Taoism symbol is the peach. Peaches represent longevity, abundance, prosperity, fertility, and the turning of seasons into spring. Usually the peach is used in conjunction with another Taoism symbol, the crane. Usually the crane will be depicted either eating a peach or has the branch of the peach tree in its mouth, a sort of depicting chasing immortality or grasping on to longevity. Korean shamans often use plants in their rituals as well. While most of the plants used are ones that we've mentioned elsewhere in the presentation, mugwort was one that was specific to Korean shamanism. This dealt with purification, protection, health, and warding off evil spirits. Plants are often present in many Korean ceremonies as well. Most iconic is the wedding ceremony, where the parents will throw jujubes and chestnuts, and the newlywed couple will try to catch as many as they can to represent their hopes of an abundant offspring. Now, some sources conflict on which ones represent boys and which ones represent girls, but as far as plant symbolism goes, chestnuts represent abundance, fertility, and longevity, and jujubes represent prosperity, good fortune, and fertility as well. That is why those two were chosen for this specific ceremony. We could not talk about plants of South Korea without mentioning its national flower, 무궁화. It means eternal blossom that never fades. In English, we call it Rose of Sharon. According to South Korea's Ministry of Interior and Safety, before the Gojoseon era, they referred to this flower as a blossom from heaven. It also shows that the Silla kingdom called itself Kunghwahang, which means country of the Mugunghwa, or the land of the hibiscus. It also shows that ancient China also referred to Korea as the land of wise men, where the Mugunghwa blooms. This is another plant that's mentioned in South Korea's national anthem. The refrain goes, 3,000 ri of splendid rivers and mountains, covered with mugunghwa blooms. Great Korean people stay true to the great Korean way. As of today, there are 6 recognized cultivars of this national flower, and you can see it's used heavily in South Korea's iconography, as with the emblem of the president, a lawmaker's badge, and the Supreme Court logo. Plants also appear on the Korean currency. The Korean currency is known as won. On the 50 won, or the coin with a 50 on it, we see a stalk of rice. The United Nations partnered with South Korea to design a coin which featured their staple crop in honor of World Food Day. On the Chonwon, which is the $1,000 note, we see the famous Confucian scholar Yi Hwang, and on the background is the plum branch. The plum branch was one of the 4 gentlemen and it represented the spring season. Moving on to the Otonwan, or the $5,000 note, we see the other famous Confucian scholar Yi Yi, and in the background of his is another one of the 4 gentleman plants. This one was the one that represented winter, bamboo. However, it is noted that the specific plant on this one is the black bamboo cultivar. It's a little bit more rare and more sacred, however it has the same symbolism as the regular bamboo plant does. His mother was quite an artist, so much so that on the back of this one is 2 paintings that were done by her in her series called Insects and Plants. Moving on to the Manwan, or the $10,000 note, we see one of the iconic Taoism paintings, Sun, Moon, and 5 Peaks. You can see the pine trees represented in this currency. Lastly, we have the Omanwan, the $50,000 note. Here we see Shin Saimdong, who is Yi's mother. She was an artist, writer, calligraphist, and poet. She also is the one who designed and drew the 2 plant portraits on the back of the $50,000 note, one depicting bamboo and the other plum blossom. Both are laid on top of one another and faced horizontally. On the front of the note, she is set in front of grapevines. There are many plants that are important to the Korean economy. However, these 3 are very unique to South Korean culture. Ginseng is very important for South Korean culture. It's been used for over 2,000 years in traditional Korean food medicine and appears in many Korean traditional dishes. It's one of the country's major exports. It's actually the 2nd largest producer right behind China. It's praised worldwide for its various health benefits. In fact, ginseng's scientific name, Phanes ginseng, comes from the Greek words phan, which means all, and akos, which means healing, so therefore it means all healing. As we know, kimchi is a very iconic dish for South Korea, and it's often made with Napa cabbage. In fact, Koreans eat approximately 50 kilograms or 110 pounds of Napa cabbage per year. Another culturally iconic food for South Korea is the Jeju tangerines. This is a specific cultivar of orange that grows on the Jeju Islands. In fact, South Korea produces 500,000 tons of Jeju tangerines per year. These trees also received the nickname the college tree because while South Korea was having economic hardships in the 1960s, the locals on Jeju Island discovered the economic power that these plants hold and decided to capitalize on it and made enough money to send their children to college. These 4 materials made most of Korean traditional clothes and other materials. Silk, which comes from silkworms who eat mainly mulberry leaves, hemp, ramie, and cotton. Now that you've learned all about these horticulturally significant plants to South Korea, please enjoy this gift bag with candies that feature these plants. Thank you for listening. 감사합니다.